Good afternoon. Welcome to this pillar 2 of our series of 4. Um, yeah, this is an interesting set. I'm really happy that we're doing this one. I've done the 4 pillars a number of times for different like keynote type sessions, and it's been really well received. So I'm really happy to be able to have a little bit of time to delve into some of these. So we'll go ahead and get started. Logistics, as always, your host today, Lauren, on our technical support. So if you have any questions, comments, thoughts, if you're having any difficulty, just pop into the questions or the chat window and type that in for Lauren. She will be monitoring that as well. If you have any questions for me during the session, please type them in. If I don't see them, then Lauren will make sure that they get caught. Sound and technology. As again, we always do our best to make sure that we've got good stable technology out there. The sound often we've found tends to lag a little bit at the beginning, but it sort of sorts itself out as we go. So if you are having some voice syncing issues, just be patient. And a quick reminder that, of course, as always, we do record all of these sessions so you can rewatch them later, or if you have any serious technical difficulties and it's not working, you'll have the opportunity to catch the session after the fact. The control panel, which is typically pops up onto the right side of your screen, there's a little red arrow there that you can use to collapse it off to the side if you need a little bit more real estate. You can click on the little blue box, which will bring up your chat box there, so you can type in questions or comments. And then, of course, you can always raise your hand, and again, Lauren will be monitoring that and bringing it to my attention. As with all of our sessions, we like to be as interactive as possible. So whenever you see this icon pop up, that's a sign for you to participate, and we'll be asking you polls and questions as we progress through. We will have our contact information at the end if you want to follow up with us afterwards via voice or email, that sort of thing. So let's get started. Just to reacquaint us with where we're at, we built this leadership model around 4 pillars: awareness, culture, objective evaluation, and focus. And we're spending these 4 webinars investigating a little bit deeper level as to what these different pillars mean and what we can do as project managers to help increase our capability around them. Last month we took a look at awareness. This session will be focusing in on culture. So we're going to go ahead and get started on that. Our opening thought as we open all of these sessions: culture eats strategy for breakfast. And this was Peter Drucker. Love this quote. And the strategy that he's talking about in this quote is really that process, that you know what's coming out of PMBOK in effect from our perspective. Now we're going to go into some detail around what is culture, but strategy is when we get together and sit down and think, okay, well, how are we going to do this? And if we think about the project plan, we often start at the very beginning of our project with how are we going to do this? And we figure out our strategy, which we label the project plan or the integrated project plan. So we put all of that together. We spend lots of time and energy building a plan, best intentions, of course, thinking, how can we do this? How can we put this all together? But really it's the culture, it's the execution of all that that's really going to make this thing really work. So when we get into this whole concept of culture eats strategy for breakfast, really what Peter was saying was if our culture's not there, it doesn't matter what strategy we have, it's not going to work. And we're going to take a look at a couple of case studies right near the end, some quick samples of my experiences where we've had good culture, good alignment with process, so that it, with the strategy, so that we had that effective execution. Okay, so just to save on bandwidth a little bit here, I'm just going to turn my webcam off. I'll turn it back on near the end. There we go, and that way you can focus in on the slides. Okay, so our first question, how do you define culture? Okay, so I'll just get you to pop into the questions box there and type in your answers as to how do you define culture. Okay. Oh, there we go. I was just about to say getting a little slow on the uptake, but we've got a couple. Beliefs, values, and attitudes from Kim. Like it. Nice. Values and behaviors from Susan. Neil, unspoken norms. Oh, love that. Sorry, Michael. Apologies. Unspoken norms. Everyone in the organization follows. I love that. That's beautiful. I love the unspoken part. Set of values that drive decisions from Oswaldo. Yeah, I totally agree. Mix of people, process, and beliefs. That's from Sean. Culture is the underlying expectations of behaviors that are normed for the group from Reg. Love it. Nice one, Reg. Social and work values within a company. A lot of values coming out in the comments here. Overall unspoken assumptions of the nature of relationships between the organization. Sarah, that's an interesting one. I'm liking that. I'd be interested to explore that more. How we relate to one another from Karen. Yeah, totally love it. Work habits from John, yes. So seeing a lot of comments here around things like values, which to me really kind of are the underlying drivers of culture. Quite a few comments around, you know, what we do and how we behave, and very often those are actually unspoken, which I think is an important detail that we need to really kind of be aware of. So the more I explore this topic, I've been kind of keeping my eye open for a good definition, and I came across this one at Project World recently. There was a session being put on by the Process Renewal Group, and I really loved this description. So it was a session around talking about how to change culture and how to modify that. And their definition of culture is a pervasive patterns of behavior. And really, to me, that's kind of really the essence. Now, totally agree with those comments that came out around values and you know, but really the values are what drives the behavior, right? We will behave a certain way based on a value, but to me the culture is really that behavioral piece. And then they went on to include both the conscious as well as subconscious. So the unspoken norms that many of you mentioned in your definitions kind of really you know, captures that piece. So the culture is both what we do consciously, what we think about, and hence take that, you know, step forward and say, okay, I'm going to do this, versus the, you know, just the knee-jerk reaction, just that whole subconscious, you know, just, you know, gut reaction type behaviors. And then finally, to round it out, in response to situations. And this is the other part that I really like about this, because when we talk about cultures, it's, you know, there's behaviors, yes, you know, this is what we do, but really when it's how we respond to different situations. And if we kind of put this into a context, we can see different people with different cultures responding differently within the same situation. So if we put two different individuals or two different groups into a similar or same situation, we might get two very different responses. Now, the whole conscious subconscious piece, we respond both, you know, consciously and subconsciously, and this really is kind of alluding to a bit of the system 1 versus system 2 thinking processes that we have. And I'm a big fan of a book called Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman. And it's funny, I came into the office this morning to get set up and prepared for today, and one of my LinkedIn posts from one of my LinkedIn groups popped up, and there was a really great 4-minute video of you know, summarizing Daniel's book around the two systems, or not summarizing the book so much, but summarizing the two processes. And really, it's kind of the conscious versus subconscious thinking. In Blink by Malcolm Gladwell, he often talks about the thin slicing, and really that's kind of the subconscious side. So it's that very knee-jerk reaction, that very quick, immediate response type behavior, which can be, for some people, you know, kind of problematic. So we really need to be aware of both when we're responding consciously and when we're responding subconsciously, and reflecting back and saying, you know, are we aware of all of this? Okay. So our next poll question. Now, our next poll is actually going to be a 3-parter, and here's how this is going to work. We're going to ask you the first one, which is, can you affect the culture of your organization? It's a simple yes/no poll. Then we're going to ask you the same question, can you affect the culture of your department? Can you affect the culture of your team? And what we're going to do is we're going to gather the responses for all three, and then we're going to show the responses for all three. So Lauren, if you want to just pop that up, it'll pop up on your screen, and then if you can just click on the yes, no's. 27 have voted. Awesome. Thank you guys. You're being nice and quick in responding. Just for clarification, someone asked, is the you specific to us as individuals? Yes, it is. So I'm thinking of this, putting this into the context of us within our organization, within our department, within our team. Do we have that ability? Okay, we've got 52% voted. When we get up to about 70, 80% voted, we'll close it down. Oh, you closed the first one already? Okay, so let me just record the yes, no's on this. Okay, Lauren, if you want to pop up the next one, please. Okay, so this one's around your department. 52% voted. I'd like to get up to about 60, 70%. 64%. Just give it another few seconds. 70%. 72%. Awesome. Thank you guys so much. Okay, Lauren, if you want to close that one down. And the last one is, can you affect your team? Some really interesting results coming in here. Okay, we got 74% voted, so we'll say, let's close that down. All right. And let's take a look at the results. And sorry, no fancy bar charts today. I'm a little bit low tech on this one. I was trying to figure out how I could compile all three results quickly, so I just did the low tech. I'll type it in and then go to the next slide. All right, so can you affect your organization? 74% said yes. I find that very surprising. Really love to, if a couple of you who said yes wouldn't mind just popping in a couple of comments into the questions box to sort of explain that. Normally when I ask that question, I get a much smaller percentage saying yes. Your department, 85% yes versus no, and then your team, 98% saying yes. That's fantastic, love it. So my take on this, I'll get a lot of pushback on the first question. Can you affect the culture of your organization? A lot of people are coming back and saying no. And the reason for that, oh, sorry, Kim, she just said poll closed too fast. Sorry about that. A lot of people come back and say, you know what, I'm just a PM, I'm just a frontline staff, I'm manager, I'm not senior management team, really can't affect that. I do tend to lean towards you can change the culture of your organization. A lot of it depends on your situation, of course. If you're part of the senior management team, large organization, absolutely. If you're in a small organization, so let's just take a look at some of the responses here. From Sarah, there's a nice looking, sorry, just scroll past there. There we go, okay. Nice looking response here. In a small organization, it is much more possible to influence the whole than in a large organization, absolutely. And I mean, we live that here at TidalShift. We are a boutique organization, so it is a little bit easier for us to affect the organization even from the lower levels. From the org, depends upon the role, absolutely. From Reg, with respect to leadership of the individual, as an outsider, I often have change aspect as part of my engagement. Yeah, so Reg is being brought in as an outsider, as a consultant, so you're already in that position, right? So you're almost being enabled to. So Bonnie, I'm just trying to understand your comment here. Persistence in positive reinforcement. Oh yeah, okay, I see what you're saying. So that whole, if we do that constant positive enforcement, that can absolutely. For organization, yes, every vote counts. Today it's only me. Tomorrow my whole team may be on my side. Collectively, we can affect the organization culture. I love it from Mohammed. Totally agree. I think we have a greater ability to influence the large organization. Now, we get into very large organizations, we get into silos, we might also be you know, we might only be able to, you know, affect our silo versus our department and so forth. Leading by example from Rajesh, totally agree. If your senior leadership buys into your idea, they can help facilitate the change. Yes, Michael, so we can totally do that. Totally agree. Some great answers coming in. I'm part of a very large organization, so start with my team through consistent effort, may affect my department. It's from Sean, totally agree. I'm loving this answer, Sean. But need my peers to be the same for the small organizational shift. Yeah. There's actually one of our webinars around change management that Siobhan presented. She presented, and there's a video on this. It's a part of a TED Talk about starting a movement. And I forget the gentleman's name off the top of my head right now, but if you just Google or go into a TED Talk and just type in start a movement, and it's the talk with the guy, the lone nut dancing at the music festival, and then he gets the first joiner, the second joiner, and then the movement starts, and it's a really cool, effective one. So, you know, when we talk about can we affect the culture at organization levels, I think we have a greater ability than we think, and I think, you know, you guys are a little bit more enlightened than some of my other groups, because I've had much less say yes in previous departments. You know, then we just see predictably the percentage going up and up and up based on the organization, based on the team or the department, and then the team. Yeah. So the smaller the group, the more direct interaction you have, definitely the more you have that ability to affect the culture. So, you know, if we want to affect culture at a more organizational level, we really need to get into the whole, you know, discussion around who are we talking to, who are we in front of, and, you know, those sorts of things. So great results. Thank you so much. Okay, now, as I was putting this together, I was looking at my last set of slides, and we had for awareness, we started with the self, and really, you know, I was kind of looking at that slide and thinking, you know, this actually applies on the culture side as well. We have a culture within ourselves, driven by our values, expressed through our behavior. So we want to ask ourselves, what's our culture? How do we behave? Then we expand that out into the team, to the organization, and of course to the environment. We're gonna explore this a little bit coming up. One of the quick little examples I like to use in this discussion is the example from Good to Great by Jim Collins, and I know I've referenced him a couple of times in my seminars. I'm really a big fan of his work. He talks about the high school science teacher who created his own little pocket of excellence, and we kind of saw that, you know, expressed in the comments that were made around, you know, how can we affect the culture of our organization? Well, we can do that by creating our own little pocket of excellence. So if we're doing our job really well, and then hence that we can start to get our team on board to support us in that, and, you know, we create that little pocket of excellence, then that can, you know, start to expand our sphere of influence as the organization starts to take notice. And it's a great little example where here we had a single science teacher in a single school. They weren't the principal of the school, they weren't, you know, district chair or superintendent, or they didn't have any kind of titles, but basically what this man did is he said, well, I'm not going to worry about the whole organization, I'm just going to do my job really, really well, and I'm going to help build my team to make a really, really good team. So he became head of the science department because he was doing his job so well. So he started with himself and say, how can I be the best me that I am? How can I be the best science teacher? And we can do the same within our environments, because we can ask ourselves, well, how can I be the best project manager, even the best team member on my project, and how can I help the team do better? And when the team does better, the organization does better, and so on. Now, we also have to be very aware of the directional flow of culture, because it can come from us within and go out, but it can also come from the environment, the organization, and from the team towards us. And this is where we often get into those situations where we might be going against our values, or you know, being forced into behaviors or things that aren't in line with our culture. So then we need to have that tough decision of, do I attempt to change that? You know, do I reach out to the team, out to the organization, and say, hey, we should be making adjustments here? Or do I accept it, and then do I adjust myself to be in line? Because we do need to be in line, both from ourselves to the team to the organization. So, and that's those times when, you know, if we're within an organization or even an environment that is not conducive or not in alignment with our own, maybe we might need to be making that tough decision to go find another environment. or another organization or another team. So how would you define culture now? I think didn't we do this already? We did, yes, but sorry, now I'm remembering my thought process. All right, so we're going to revisit this, how do we define culture? And what I want to do, and we're going to use the, again, the questions box to answer this one. And I put an image up here, first of all, of an operating room. And what I'd like to do is describe the culture, define the culture of this environment. Because we've just been talking about how the environment will tend to shape our cultures and our behaviors to some extent, and are we in line with that? So I'd like you to just reflect on this image for a few moments and just type in some words around this culture. And I'm just going to let a few answers flow in before I start reading them off. Okay, I like Harry's one, intense. Nice one. All right, so let's start to read off a few of these answers. From Michael, highly collaborative. From Bonnie, hierarchy. Now this is interesting because highly collaborative and hierarchy are often kind of at odds with each other. So I'd be interested, Bonnie, if you could kind of expand on that, and Michael, with the thought of, this hierarchy, can we have hierarchy and be highly collaborative? So while waiting for those, just go through some of the others. Life or death from Kim, absolutely. Very high stakes in this environment. You make mistakes here and literally someone could die, right? Patient safety, so very safety oriented. High stakes, stressful from Kim again. Disciplined and structured, yes, very disciplined, very structured. Which kind of leans towards that, hey, hierarchy kind of makes sense here. So how can we be collaborative and still be disciplined and structured and hierarchical? From Lindsay, controlled. From Sarah, focused, detail-oriented, care-based, yeah. Huge on the detail-oriented. I mean, small mistakes can be pretty intense. Requires a lot of skill from Kim. Long one from Oswaldo. The main behavior that drives decisions is the life of the person being operated on. Oswaldo, yes, absolutely. So, very much like we need to remain flexible in our approach, how we do this, controlled and highly stressful, cleanliness, very disciplined from Keith. Kenneth, yes, absolutely. From Kim, teamwork, big exclamation marks, and precision, totally agree. Really, it is a very team environment. You've got, the doctor who's actually performing the operation, but they've got, their assist who's going to be handing them tools, the appropriate tools, the appropriate times, helping out. You got the anesthesiologist sitting there monitoring the patient's vitals through the whole process, following a lead, okay, from Oswaldo again. Surgeon dominant from Judy, yes, very much. We do have, a chief, a head of this, right? It needs to be a high level of trust, absolutely. Disciplined yet creative, such as improvisational jazz is an example from Reg. Love that imagery. Okay, so Michael's responded, the surgeon would be the leader in the bunch. The others need to also be paying attention to everything what's going on, i.e. the surgeon may drop an instrument. Hope that makes sense. Totally agree, yes. And it's interesting because the surgeon does tend to get relatively hyper-focused in this situation, and he or she really does need to be. So really relying on the other team members to be, watching the other moving parts. So, the anesthesiologist is going to be monitoring the vitals. So this allows the surgeon to really focus on their job, get it done, and meanwhile they know that if something goes beyond, a critical threshold, that, that other team member will raise the alarm bells and so forth. So great analysis on this one, guys. All right, our next image, and very timely since we've got the openings of the Pan Am Games tonight. Lots of discussion around gridlock in the city. So let's think about the culture of the traffic jam, of the daily commute, of the driving. What thoughts pop to mind from a culture perspective here? Oh, beautiful, Karen. Lemmings, love it. Constrained rage, ridiculous. All right, let's think about culture. You're in that situation. Okay, so we're seeing frustration, we're seeing high pressure. I love the first one, accommodating and patient from Susan. Now from Sarah, individualistic, stressful, and combative. I love it. Yes, combative. And guilty as charged. You know, it's easy to be nice and calm and collected when the traffic's flowing, but you get into those bad traffic situations and you know, it's very, you're running late for the meeting, you're high stressed, it can be really easy to cut people off and, you know, get into those road rage things and all that. Need to be organized and follow the traffic rules from Kenneth. Totally agree. In both of these cultures, and I really chose them, you know, carefully because the surgeon example is very much, it's a collaborative, it's very team-based. You know, you're all working towards that same goal. In the traffic jam scenario, while we're all kind of working to the same goal, we're all working to different goals because we have different destinations. But we're kind of all working the same way, and when we do follow the rules, things tend to flow a lot better, right? Oh, turn up the music, love it, Sean. Now, each on its own, minimal collaboration and order from Mubarak, Mark. Love that one, love that answer, thanks. You know, the whole, you know, stuck in the rut kind of resignation, very restrictive, very linear. We're often kind of, you know, stuck on a path. We don't necessarily have lots of options. Need to adopt a community behavior, good for the greater needs to take precedence, Oswaldo. Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, we can change our culture, and some of these answers are actually more around how do we fix it versus, you know, kind of what is that culture, right? Rushing to go nowhere, but strategizing on ways to get ahead at any cost from Judy. Oh, I love that. That's brilliant. Yeah, it's interesting how our cultures kind of change when we get in that different environment. Very individualistic, but we could also work on a very team basis because, you know, if we all follow the same rules and, you know, if we all kind of work more collaboratively, we could actually get things done a little bit better and faster. All right, now for our third image. Oh, sorry, one last one from Dana on the car one is unwilling to deviate from the designated path. Yeah, we get very set in our ways, don't we, about which path we go. All right, so let's take a look at this third image. This is the New York Stock Exchange, the trading floor. What sort of cultural things pop up here? High pressure, yeah, totally agree, Deborah. Okay, I gotta read these two together. From Mohammed, chaos, love it. And then from Sean, organized madness. Lindsay saying frantic. Winner takes all from Michael. Yeah, totally agree. This is very much a I win, you lose environment, right? You know, and if we compare that to the other extreme, which is, you know, the operating room, there's definitely not a I win, you lose. It's not like, hey, I did a better job than you, but, you know, it's really all, you know, very much focused on the patient. The car one is kind of halfway in between though, because there can be a bit of an I win, you lose. You know, I get ahead, cut you off. You know, maybe I find that other route that's faster, that kind of thing. From Kim, attention seeking and posturing. Yeah, lots of that happening on the trading floor. Totally agree. Very high motivation from Eleanor. Totally agree. Yep. And I think that really plays into that whole win versus lose, winner take all thing. From Debbie, urgent, fast pace. From Kim, bullying, loud. Yeah, there's really, it's a very chaotic environment. It's a very dog eat dog, you know, I win, you lose type environment. Really kind of, you know, gets that sort of competitive, but almost the negative side of competitive coming out, right? Attention to high motivation, chaotic, competitive, no collaboration at all. Yeah, totally agree there, right? So we kind of really went to the other end of the extreme. Profit driven, so very specific goal, and it's often, sadly, John, agree with you here, it's often profit at any expense, right? Separated from the outside context, very focused and individual tasks from Dana. I'm not really getting what you're saying there, Dana, if you could elaborate on that a little bit. Yeah, from Roberta, different teams, very non-collaborative. And even if you take a look at a single trading company or organization, even within it, it's very, very competitive. Okay. All right, so I was just hoping if Dana has a chance to do a quick response. Separated from the outside context, very focused on individual tasks. Yeah, I think it's kind of like what's happening on the floor is your entire focus. Removed from essential human needs. Okay, yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, you're really stepping into a completely different environment. You're really stepping into a, you know what, making money, making that trade. This is kind of our whole focus there. Yeah, absolutely. Now, there's an interesting comment by Reg that I want to just kind of explore a little bit. Individual greed tempered by collective gain. And, you know, when we talk about the capitalist market, it's much like a traffic jam, I think. If we did temper our individual greed for that collective gain, I think, you know, the entire traffic flow would go better, much like, you know, if we temper our individual need to get ahead in that traffic jam, you know, to allow the whole traffic jam to flow better. And I think when you start to look at different cultures of different financial countries, really, and I mean the fairly recent stock market crash here, we compare how Canada did versus the U.S. I think in Canada we're a little bit more tempered by the collective gain than perhaps in the U.S. But yeah, I think you can see when we are more tempered by the collective gain, things tend to overall go better, and it kind of gives that whole, if the entire environment's more healthy, then our team and our productivity is going to be more healthy. So, but that can get lost sometimes. So that would be a good important thing to keep an eye out for, so that we don't get into the me first type mentality that we often fall into when we get into the traffic jam scenario. Okay, so here's the $64,000 question: can you affect the culture on your projects? So we've talked about culture at the individual level. We talked about culture at the team level, at the organization level, the different levels. Can we do this within a project? Okay, so 44% voted, 59% voted. Wait till we get up to about 70%. We're at 65, so we just get a couple more in. 67. Getting the answer I expected, so thank you all. All right, there's our 70%, so go ahead, Lauren. Yay, 100% saying yes. And while that was out there, there's a couple of comments that came in. Mohammed said, yes, 110%. And from Reg, in a black and white choice in a world of 1,000 grays. Yeah, there's a lot of factors that definitely play in. And as Sarah was just saying, yes, that is in fact your job. So thank you you can close down the results. So yes, in fact, this is our job. This is what we are doing. Now there is, 1,000 shades of gray out there that can cloud the issue. But the reality is, folks, if we're running a project, our job is to help. One of, I think, a main success factors here is to set and maintain and affect that culture. Now, are there going to be factors that come into play that could, set us off the rails? Totally agree, 100%. Didn't say it was going to be easy, but it is definitely, a very serious part of our job. So, we need to kind of look at, how can we do that? So let's pop this question up. How can we affect cultural change within our projects? And by saying affect cultural change, really what I'm saying is, how can we set the culture? So what are some of the things that we can do to either set or maintain that culture? And I'm not really necessarily looking for the specific cultural elements that we want to see, but what can we do to, set whatever culture it is that we want? Great, we're seeing the comments coming in fast and furious. Thank you, folks. This is awesome. All right, so let's start to read off some of these. First one I'm gonna choose here is set expectations from Lindsay. Totally agree. And I mean, we're seeing an increased focus on that within PMBOK, within the project management world around setting those expectations. Behave that way all the time from Kim. Absolutely. There's a great expression that I came across many years ago that I just love, which is you're judged on how you behave, you judge yourself on your intentions. So we often do things and say, you know, well, my intent was this, but the reality is other people are going to judge you on your behavior. So, you know, you have to behave that way. Lead by example, walk the talk from Debbie. Totally agree. Be completely transparent and build that trust from Roberta. Totally, yeah, absolutely. And we're going to take a look at a couple of you know, success stories that I've experienced, and that was definitely very prominent in both of them. Now, the being transparent and building trust, you know, whatever way we want to go, whatever cultural norm we want to establish, if you don't have that trust, people aren't going to follow you. I mean, think about your own personal experiences when you've had a leader you didn't trust. Really, it's almost impossible to follow. Review and agree on behaviors collectively at the onset of the project from Michael. Oh, nice one, Mike. Love that, yeah. Review it and agree on it, right? So just saying what we're going to do, you know, that's you talking, right? Now you need to get the rest of the team, do it at the onset, right? Create positive ways to connect, like inclusive team debriefs, success of celebrations, implementing change of strategy, providing feedback from Sarah. Love those, are all really good ones. Really basic, another really good basic one from Roberta, respect others. It's almost impossible to have respect if you don't give it, right? So you have to give it before you can get it. So you do need to respect other people, right? Listen and guide from Harry, totally agree. Suggesting and commenting from Kenneth. Again, walk the talk from Susan, so very much similar to what we were talking about earlier. Behave that way all the time, lead by example. You've got to walk the talk. I don't know about you, but I've definitely had some bosses along the way that you know, didn't walk the talk. They talked about it, they stayed a great game, and then they go in the, you know, their behaviors in the other direction, right? Encourage collaboration, and we're going to explore that a little bit later. Motivation within the team, working on the project. Yep, Julie, and that can be a really tricky one, as we all know. Different people motivated by different things. So yeah, that can be a really good one. Mentoring, not just respect, but also establishing trust from Lindsay. Yes, totally agree. Respect is an aspect there. I think without respect, you can't get trust. You can have respect and not trust. Yep, that's totally agreeable. Okay, so here's another one just in from Kim. People are describing an exceptional leader. Most leaders are striving to be that flexible, adaptable, well-rounded leader. Yep, yeah, I agree. And like I say, not an easy thing to do. There's lots of elements there. Some days we're going to get it right. Other days we're going to miss a little bit. You know, we do the best we can and, you know, learn from those experiences and move forward. But if we're not actively trying, yeah, we're not going to get there. So kind of that whole, you know, you miss 100% of the ones you don't swing for. So if we can, you know, start to take some of these things and really, you know, actively try to put them into effect, you know, we know what it is that needs to be done. So I just want to share with you a couple of success stories that I've experienced in my career. The first I'm calling the story of Gordon. I might have mentioned him before. I worked on a very large project. I was kind of on a sub-project on it for the implementation of SOX in one of the financials, and the main leader of the entire program was a gentleman named Gordon. Just fabulous guy. Would totally work for him again in an instant. And here's a couple of the things that I really saw as key success factors. The first was lots of communication. Now, every week we had a meeting, and we called this meeting the Friday Flip. It wasn't mandatory, but everyone showed up. And it was about an hour. And it basically went from noon to 1 o'clock. And we called it the flip because at the end of the meeting, we would all take quarters and we would flip them. Now, whoever had the most would go on one side of the room and whoever had the least on the other, and we just keep flipping until we got down to a winner. And it was lots of fun. So, you know, we had fun during this meeting. There was also business involved. You know, but there was lots of communication. So even as a team member who wasn't really active in the actual core process, because I was playing very much a support role, I was taking care of the technical side of things, I didn't really understand fully what it was, the job that we were doing, but I was involved. I was there, and, you know, I was always part of that meeting, and, you know, I really learned what the process was and how, and that really did help me in my piece, in my corner of the project. But like I said, there was lots of communication. The second piece was there was an open door policy. And what really makes this one stand out is that Gord really lived it. Now, about 2 years earlier within the same organization, my contract, which I was a contractor through this, my contract was shortened, basically was ended by a VP who basically said, and I was a manager at the time, so I was managing a technology group, who basically said, you know, we've restructured, your position now answers directly to the VP, and since you're only a manager, not a senior manager, we've decided to, you know, terminate your contract, and we've got this other guy coming in to take over. So basically what this person was saying is, as a manager, I can't talk to a VP. It's like, okay. Now, I move on. I'm now working on Gord's team. Gord's also a VP, same level as this other person. I'm not even a manager anymore. I'm now just, you know, a direct contributor. I'm supporting, you know, putting together and supporting the technology piece for the larger team. So I have a senior manager who I answer to, and then my senior manager answers to Gord. And Gord completely had an open door policy, and on 2 occasions I did take advantage of it, and he did live it. So I could walk into his office and chat with him at any time, right? And he didn't look at the levels and say, oh, you're you know, below senior manager, so I can't talk to you, kind of thing. And then finally, the having fun piece, which I put as AKA make it inviting. Now, your brain at its very basic level, which we often refer to as the lizard brain, 5 times a second says, should I move towards this or should I move away? And you make something inviting, people want to move towards it, right? So when we can do lots of good things, you know, have open communication, open door policy, and that kind of thing, but if we don't make it inviting, if we don't make people want to be there, and this is why I commented that the Friday Flip, the weekly meeting, was not mandatory, but everyone was there, because it was a very inviting environment. You know, it was, you were welcome, you were wanted to be there. You know, people were celebrated by the fact that they were even showing up. And, you know, we also had some fun, right? Now, one of and above almost all is he lived all of these, because, and I don't know about you, but, and I've polled a number of my classes over the years, saying, you know, we talk about the open door policy, lots of communication. I say, okay, who has ever worked for boss with an open door policy? You know, 3/4 of the room puts their hands up. I say, now of those, who lived it, right? At least half of the hands go down, which is really sad. But most of all is if we live this. Now, I want to share with you a quick little tool that Gord came up with, and you know, I checked with him, and he said, yeah, go ahead, share it. So he called it his 5 8s, and this is kind of, you know, the backbone of how we ran the project. The first one was communicate, right? So that talks about the open communication, the weekly meeting, the open door policy, that kind of thing. The next one was delegate, and basically this is the concept, and we had a really good dedicated team, but really good dedicated teams often overwork themselves. So he actively encouraged people to delegate, to hand off work, instead of, you know, sort of bringing it into yourself and saying, you know what, I'm going to do this because I'm the expert and I know what I'm doing, and I can do this better than others. You know, delegate it out. Now, escalate. We had a core team of around 40 people. We bring contractors in because of our yearly cycle, so we would balloon to somewhere around 60, 70 people on the larger team. There's too many moving pieces here to really know what's going on. So, and this again goes back to the open door policy and the communication piece. He was really encouraging people that if there's an issue, if we've got a problem, escalate it up and let him know about it, so that, you know, we can deal with this as a team, right? And if whether you're a direct contributor, a manager, senior manager, you know, whatever level within the organization, escalate that issue. And we've got to really take away that stigma of negative when we talk about escalation, especially in the project management world. When you escalate things, it's really about bringing it to the surface, bringing it up to get it to to a level where we can have the team approach and the team solve it, right? And as well getting our sponsors involved at the appropriate time so that we get proper support and so forth. Celebrate. I think that one's a little bit self-explanatory, but we would celebrate our successes. We would celebrate little things, even someone taking vacation, that kind of stuff. And then vacate. And this one to me was my real big epiphany. Great thing. We were running this was a multi-phase project. Each phase was a year because it was a yearly cycle. But what we saw was people were overworking. They weren't delegating, so there's the delegate piece again. But they also were taking their work home on the weekends, and they were doing working in the evenings, working on the weekends. And while yes, we can sprint once in a while, we need to do a marathon pace. And so what he was actually honestly and openly saying is, you guys need to shut off your systems, leave the books at home, or leave the books at work, excuse me, and head home and have a vacation, have a weekend, have that time off, right? Because we need that downtime. There's multiple studies that show that taking that break for the weekend, taking that break for at night so that we can recharge properly, taking that break for even lunch, you're more productive, you're better. So really he was openly, honestly supporting at the highest level of his organization, of his team, saying, what, you need to disconnect and shut down and walk away for a little bit, right? So to vacate. Now, of course, the level of doing that varied on the time of year, because as we approached year end and the deadline for the SOX attestation, we were sprinting. But then, of course, we would balance that out. So really a nice balance there. I added a sixth one myself, which was inebriate. That's sort of an extension of celebrate. But anyways, now my second success story that I wanted to share, and I actually quoted Todd and Cam in a previous webinar. So I had the very good fortune of being on both the ornithopter project and the helicopter project. So this is the ornithopter project pictured here. And the thing that came out of this one for me is humility is key. So we're working with the two team leads. One is a PhD in aeronautical engineering. The other is working on his master's degree in aeronautical engineering. These are very well educated, high functioning, high experts here. And their AeroVelo, the company they formed out of all of this, their mandate is, we believe that humans can do the impossible, and we're here to prove it. So how do we achieve the impossible? Sorry, humans can do the impossible. We're here to prove it. And they've now had two back-to-back, successes of doing things that were deemed impossible. So how did they achieve it? Well, the first thing is constant communication. Every morning when the team got together to work, there was a quick, and we do this in Agile. You have a stand-up, right? You have a scrum. There's a quick, quick team meeting. Here's where we're at. Here's what we're doing. Here's what we're going to work on today. Anytime anything went on, it was very easy to raise your hand and say, hey, here's what's happening. Here's what's going on. Here's what I've seen. Here's what I observed, etc. And it was never received in a bad way. So you make a mistake, you do something. You could go to anyone on the team and have that. So the open discussion of the problems, they would bring the team together to say, hey, we're struggling with this problem. So here you've got the two leads that are both, one's a PhD, one is a master's. They're leading this team. The team is made up of a lot of students, a lot of co-ops, some volunteers, and like myself as a volunteer, and they would accept everyone, literally from everyone. And I remember at the beginning of the ornithopter project, before as they were trying to figure out the design, they had some co-op students from France who actually weren't even aeronautical engineering students. And one of them asked about the hinge. And they were trying to explain about, how when you do a hinge, it focuses pressures and energies and structure becomes heavy and so forth and so forth and so forth. And there was a misunderstanding because the person, the French student was saying, get rid of the hinge. And so they've now termed this their hingeless moment. And this is what enabled them to do this. So here they had input from someone who was, not at that high level. And chatting with Todd and Cam later in reflection on this, they say we kind of need more of that input, which is almost counterintuitive when you think of the level of engineering and the level of detail that we need here. And I've seen this in multiple environments where you get that non-expert in the room and they ask that what we often think of as that silly question, but it creates the epiphany, it creates the aha. And during the helicopter project, they gathered the team in to solve, and it was a very small little minor technical issue, and here's one of the team members who's only a high school graduate who's just volunteering his time to say, hey, this is cool, I want to work on this, and he came up with the solution, and they're all like, that's brilliant. So we definitely need the high functioning SMEs, but we also need the fresh views on the world, I haven't been tainted with years of education and that kind of thing to have that fresh outlook. So as project team leads, we really need to be open to that input from everyone. So the constant communication, make it open to discuss the problems. I've been on those experiences, I'm sure you have as well, where you have those team leads, those project leads who are very much a shoot the messenger type, and so we don't discuss the problems, they get hidden, and as a PM, if we're in that environment, how do we know what the problems are? And if we don't know the problems, we can't solve them and so forth. So there's I think some good lessons to be learned here around that. So we're approaching the hour. We've now covered off awareness and culture. Our next session is going to be objective evaluation. Just going to turn my webcam back on here. Our next session is going to be objective evaluation, where now that we've got some things around awareness and culture, we can start to look at how we can better objectively evaluate how we're doing, and then we're going to round out our four with focus. So back to our opening thought, culture eats strategy for breakfast. And this really goes down to how do we execute, how do we do. One of the things I like to say whenever I have this conversation is, I absolutely hate that whole expression of rules were made to be broken. They're not. Rules are made to be followed. Your culture is whether you follow the rules or not. Now, if the rule's not working, if the process isn't working, if your strategy's not working, it needs to be changed. Totally agree with that, right? But we need to have a culture of following that. And if it's not working, let's adjust it, right? So instead of simply breaking the rules, let's adjust those rules and let's make sure that we put something together that does work, okay?